No, but we still addressed what you need to address about language, consent, and in curriculum.
I know.
But it's hard.
Because you don't want to say
There was landmines all over that. Like I was ready to say something. Like I keep your mouth shut.
There's
Like,
okay, right?
Oh yeah, you're
I
fine.
didn't step on your
But I was thinking of it. You didn't say any landmines. But I was thinking about this. Think about a woman with autism not reading the plays of a man hitting or whatever.
Yeah, they're hitting on them.
Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is what's happening. And the man doesn't understand because he's doing the normal thing that he would normally do. You know what I mean?
it's
So
complicated.
everyone's in a spot where it's like, what just happened, right?
There's a really funny video in the UK with Carly Jones, if anybody's seen it.
No.
They do one of those speed dating things.
Yeah.
And it's a trick question because they ask the gentleman at the end, which one of these ladies is autistic?
Yeah.
And they can't answer, and the answer is it's all of them.
Wow.
It's hilarious. I mean, I can't remember the name of the broadcast.
Well, you know what's interesting? 30 years later, I have people coming back out of my life and they're saying, how come you never went out with me? And then they say, oh, you have autism, that you missed that I asked
You missed the cues.
I don't
Yeah,
know how
I
many
missed it.
relationships
I know.
I
Damn!
That's
You know,
You mean you like me? Oh no,
I missed it. I missed it. No, but I'm just saying, it's bizarre, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think I missed half my life.
You're peering in on the after show, guys, and that's basically, we didn't get to everything on this one, so I've grabbed everyone and said I need 10 more minutes so that we can deal with some topics. You're probably watching this on YouTube or somewhere after the event. The first discussion, women with ASD, with Autism Ontario. This was, I thought, it was interesting.
We're groundbreaking.
It was groundbreaking. I felt like, I had chills at some moments. I felt like we really, we were talking about topics that had no answers, which is different. Usually we're sitting here and we're asking somebody, what's the answer to this? Well, I can't say for every child, but you should do this, this, and this, or whatever. So this was really was
Black and
groundbreaking.
white.
So much so that we didn't get to some
We're
very...
rainbow.
We're rainbow.
Rainbow.
Yes.
Yes.
Rainbow.
We did not get to some things we wanted to talk about, so I want to try and power through these big ones. Relationships. We have someone who has been married for how long?
26 years.
The secret to that, I don't understand, but as a divorced man myself.
As a divorced
talk to me about what's unique about relationships. What makes it challenging to be in a relationship or a long-term relationship when being a woman on the spectrum?
Well, remember, I got my diagnosis only 7 years ago, so I've lived a major part of my married life undiagnosed.
Right.
So there are many times where we'd get into fights, and it's even sensory. He would touch me, just like lightly touch me, and I would go, and he'd say, ow, and I'd say, don't touch me like that. It feels like a mosquito's hurting me, or it was pain.
Yeah.
And he'd tell me something, and I'd get really angry. Like, for instance, he'd call me on the phone and he'd say, so we're going to clean the house tonight. And he'd call me like an hour before I got home, and then I would flip out. And he'd say, why? But when I got my diagnosis, it's like he understands I don't like change now. And so if there's social events that are planned, he won't just tell me we're going there right now. Unless I want to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a big motivation for
Exactly. And I have a unique place, and she always laughs because she says, I don't know.
She's
where
in
she
Paris
is.
again.
I'm in Paris. I love Paris. I could live in Paris. I could live on my own and be married, and I'd be perfectly happy. People don't understand that. So within my house, within my home, I have my spaces. So I have a bunkie close to the river where I go and I escape.
And you call that Paris?
I call that Paris. It's decorated. And then I renovated a whole trailer where I can go escape and have my own time.
Wow.
It's not always about being together because we can't stand that.
Are these strategies that you employed prior to the diagnoses?
I had my own spaces,
Yeah.
and then it sort of made it okay.
Yeah.
And again, it's through society. People would look at us and say, what do you mean she's sleeping in the bunkie? Doesn't that bother you? And it never did.
Yeah.
But now that it's because of the autism. She needs her alone time. She needs her space.
Well, clearly, 50% of what's the stat? 50% of marriages end in divorce. So it's not, because of autism. But are there data sets around the number of autistic adults, women, men who are married versus single? And
I don't have that
I
stuff.
think there's quite a few
Yeah.
that have successful relationships.
Yeah. So
Others of us, like me, have broken relationships. But
But
I don't think they're
that's-
any less likely to seek out relationships.
Right.
No, I don't either. I think there's a myth that
They're aloof.
most people. I mean, yes, there are a number of people who may be asexual, but interestingly, you can be asexual and still want to be part of a couple
Yeah.
a couple relationship. I think we have these sort of
Stereotypes.
these norms of what a relationship should look like. And I think for any relationship to be successful, it needs to make sense for the
Whatever
couple.
works, exactly.
And I think if there's an autistic member of the couple, or if both are on the spectrum, communication is almost even more essential around, what touch feels like, or the need for space, or all those different pieces.
And I mean, it's got to be, would have been even easier with the proper awareness on your husband's side to know, so you can like strategize the way we do with children, right? We find out that they're on the spectrum. Hopefully, what we do is we start strategizing the school, the home, what it's going to be like in all of these cases. Let's move on to work. I think we talked about a few things about in the workplace, some of the different things that can come up, but what are let's start maybe just talking about in general, women at work and women at work on the spectrum. Christine, what are your thoughts, challenges?
I was fully employed for 7 years. That was the longest job that I held, and it was very stressful. I was better off when I had natural lighting, like you were talking about earlier, and was able to set my own agenda.
Yeah.
Whenever I was part of a hierarchy where I didn't understand the rules, then it all fell apart. So now I work for myself,
Right.
and a lot of us, they don't count self-employment in some of the surveys, which is a weakness, because we can be very successful in self-employment.
Okay.
Or in a
And becoming autism
Yeah.
specialists, and
A
many women
combination of
are getting certified as autism specialists.
What are you seeing in your practice?
that people can be very successful at work. I think it's helpful. So I know some people who have not been 100% comfortable in disclosing their autism diagnosis, and that tends to be a big conversation about do you not?
Yeah. Well, we have one pending here.
Obviously, there's human rights issues around disability needs to be disclosed.
Yes.
And
I'm
accommodation.
sorry, disability needs to be accommodated,
Accommodation.
but there's still stigma, and it's still a personal choice. So the people who I know who work, who are happiest, most successful, are the ones who've been able to find some accommodation when necessary, be it sensory, because the world is changing a little bit in terms of work, and how, if you can work from home.
Yeah.
If you can have these times where, even like being able to take a sick day now and again, so you don't burn
and
out.
not get questioned.
Yeah, and so you don't burn out.
The personal day versus the sick day,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find like if I have 2 intense days, I need a day off after.
Yeah.
And there's also an employment chapter if you want to hold the book up again.
So
There's a good
for
chapter.
those of you that have found us and did not watch the webinar, because there will be some of those people,
Yeah.
we are talking about this book. It is available on Amazon. It's called Spectrum Women Walking to the Beat of Autism, and there's a chapter on employment. But
I need to add something.
Go ahead.
I get bored. I get so easily bored. I've been working within the school system for 25 years, and I get so bored. Every 3 years, and people see it coming. It's my
Yeah.
3rd year this year. I look for something, because when I accomplish my goals, I do something, and I like to think I do it well. So I'll do like huge landmarks,
yeah,
and then I'm like, okay, what's next?
right.
I always need to be moving, and I hate being told what to do.
Yeah.
And I need a structure, but I like to be the one that structures underneath. You know what I mean?
I mean, you both just said the same thing when it comes to
It's-
that, and it's this is the painful thing about late diagnoses, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
one thing when you're going into the workforce and you're deciding how you're going
know.
to use that grade,
This degree.
this
whatever.
degree or get
Yeah.
what degree. You think you're going to get a degree to be a teacher.
Whatever, and then it morphs.
And then you should, what you may have should, and it worked out for you guys, but you may have should have done something different knowing this, right?
Like it took me 33 years to go into music,
Yeah,
Yep.
which was my destiny to start with, but I was told I could not make a living by a high school guidance counselor. It really
well,
screwed me up.
that's,
Because I was very shy and mute, and he just didn't see me. He didn't suggest music teaching.
But you had perfect pitch.
I had perfect pitch, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that
Mhm.
I change every few years as well, and I've worn over 30 hats in my life
Yeah.
because I never found the right occupation.
I don't think
you
there
know?
is a right one. I think you need variety.
Well, for that time.
And yeah, you need to be able to do different things. So that's why I have so many hobbies. I'll write and I'll compose and I'll do, because work is just a small part of who I
Well, and
am.
I want to say something to that,
Right.
is, which I think is fantastic that there's been this acknowledgement that people need to find their passions, and it's great if you can work in your passion,
But
it doesn't always work
Yeah,
out that
doesn't
way.
help.
And I think unfortunately a good case and example is the number of young people I see who tell me they want to be video game designers.
Oh my God, we've talked about it 17 times on this desk. People bring up, well, you know, they can get into like video game design. I'm like, I feel like saying, there's only so many video game designers
That's
out
right.
there.
And it is-
There's
and-
a level of skill that goes along
And
with
so
that
I think
too.
we also need to talk about that you can have a job that doesn't need to be your passion and vocation. And that's reality sometimes.
that's life.
Although I will say, autistic people on the spectrum tend to do better with things that are intrinsically motivating to them. So it's important to find some aspect of the job that is intrinsically motivating, so that the boring parts are bearable. I mean, that's exceptionally important. But also telling and showing people that you can do your passions on the side too. They can be hobbies, and they can be. It doesn't have to be. You can still you can do these things on the side and have.
That's what keeps you sane.
Yeah.
What's technical? Sorry, I want to get this question answered because I think it's a good one before you guys move on. Is there anything technically needed for women on the spectrum to safely disclose in the workplace that they, in fact, are on the spectrum?
Technically needed? Is that
Like it seems to me when I read this is like when your boss asks you for a doctor's note, like is there a
an actual.
like I don't know, is there anything needed to walk in there, or is it simply I want to
Oh, I
speak to
see.
you? You know what I mean? When you are deciding to disclose in the workplace.
I disclosed it to my school board.
Yeah.
Because, well, I wasn't going to, then Chatelaine disclosed it
For you.
nationwide.
Yeah.
So then they said, oh, it was true. I said, yeah, it was true. So when I disclosed it, I brought in the diagnosis. But even then, you'll have the diagnosis, and as well-intended as people are, they'll still say, well, what does this mean? And are you sure? Well, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure I can't have fluorescence. I'm sure I can't share my classroom. I'm sure. And every year you have to go through I still have autism.
Yeah.
That didn't change. Like I went through
Over
it
the
again.
summer, yeah.
And it didn't change. It's lifelong, right?
It's
Exhausting.
yeah.
To have to explain
And
constantly.
always, you're sick. Now, was that because you had a cold? Or is that because of, well, it doesn't matter,
So
you know?
Yeah.
none of us are labor professionals, so I
No,
don't
and that's
want
why I don't wanna-
get too far into it. But
Yeah.
I usually frame it as far as the accommodation that I need.
right,
I just say,
Lucky.
I work best when I,
Yeah.
right,
and fill in the blank.
yeah.
My
like-
employer has been more than accommodating. In fact, I like to hope that what we're doing for me is gonna help
Help
other
other people
women and other
down the
school
road.
boards.
Right.
Because they've been so,
And they're so
Yeah.
scared of disclosing some of them. I have
I
friends
know,
who,
I'm so happy.
Well, I know that. I don't think, I'm not even gonna talk. Look, there's
Yeah.
there's ESAs online. I just as I'm an employer myself,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
people have disclosed things to me, but the proof, if you will, or what is needed is only required when you are, going to miss work or whatever would be the
Or
only
having
time,
an
or
asking
having a serious accommodation, right?
Yep.
You ask first, and maybe people do this. We moved into this office in March, and someone's like, I don't want to sit in this area because of X.
And I've had clients do that too, to say that I can't sit, they've not chosen not to disclose the autism,
Yeah.
but they say, I need a place where I don't have fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
Or it's too noisy,
I
this
think that most
environment.
people will,
And most people have been successful in
Mhm.
finding another cubicle somewhere
Yeah.
where it's.
yeah. Unless there's a huge issue, we're not going to, as an employer, why would you, I don't know why, I should speak for anyone. Let's move off this topic, because I don't think that we are the experts of that.
We are not.
but I don't usually do it at an interview. I do it after I get the job.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
never had an interview.
I've had some people, one of my clients is very successfully employed and she disclosed at the interview. So,
Oh, nice.
Good for her.
yeah, and that's a decision she's made, and she's
Yeah.
always disclosed, and it worked out really well.
I find
Well-
the younger people are much more out there,
Yeah.
right?
But there's another way-
They own it.
Yeah.
They say, oh, I'm autistic, I'm proud of it. I'm glad I'm different.
Yep.
I have advantages to
Yeah.
being autistic. It's a very different generation.
Yeah, but I think there's ways of doing it, just thinking about interviews, right? Because oftentimes in the interview, there's a point in time where I ask, do you have any questions for me?
Mhm.
Or, a good interviewer usually asks, what's a workplace you liked, what's a boss you liked, or whatever that is. But in general, you're going in there as a person and you're asking those questions like, what's your work from home policy? I generally need to work from home once a week. Well, why is that? Well, I'm saying autism, but I work better when I have a day where I can collect and do this, that, and the other. Would you be open to that? I've had people negotiate in things I didn't know why until later. But at the interim, they talked to me about, what are the hours? Are you acceptable at 9:30 or 10 o'clock until 6?
Gotcha.
I work all the time, but I hate people watching me having to be at my desk at 8:30 because mornings were challenging for them, and it was not autism
No.
related, but whatever, it ended up being related to something else. And so I think there's ways of not disclosing if you're uncomfortable, but still handling these things on the way through, because it's a contract that we are making together, right?
Yep.
I agreed to hire you. You told me that 8:30 every day is a problem. And if I go back on that, I'm breaking my contract with you. We wanted to talk a bit about parenting as well, right? And just the unique challenges that come into parenting when you are someone who is on the spectrum. Is it most common that if a woman is on the spectrum that her children will be, or is it is?
It's one of the kids.
There's an increased incidence of having a child on the spectrum if there is parents or people in the
Okay.
family on the spectrum. So the chances are, increased. You can speak to this as being a...
It becomes interesting, I can tell you that much. I only have a few things to share. First of all, my husband is a saint, and my children are absolutely incredible, because to be raised by a mother on the spectrum is a whole other ballgame, right? Because
Why is it a whole other ballgame? What are the things that we need to watch out for, I guess, as parents on the spectrum?
I tend to have I focus on certain things, and when people don't think the way that I do, I get upset.
Okay.
Now, if I have a child also on the spectrum who thinks the same way, and
Yeah.
he's a male,
Yeah.
and then we start locking horns, right? And then there's always conflict.
So what'd you do to resolve that?
My husband got in the middle often.
Peacemaker, there we
With
are.
the peacemaker, and we would have to come up with compromises. Something as simple as watching a TV show. Do we watch Seinfeld or do we watch Frasier? And we both want different things. Now, it's just so on one night we'll do this night, and on one night we'll do this show, because we need to compromise. But he's more rigid than I am. I'm able to morph more. But when I was younger, I couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
And whenever changes would occur, it would really upset me. Like, if I wanted to go somewhere and my child was crying and I wanted to go somewhere, I'd bring him while he was crying. And I didn't know how to deal with that.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that gets some looks in the supermarket too,
Oh,
right?
I got
Some
a lot of
judge and
looks.
a lot of,
Absolutely. And they'll look at you and they'll say, well, you don't know how to raise your children, or you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a
That
whole
hurts.
dichotomy. It hurts,
Yeah.
exactly. And then just, you're the mom, you don't know what to do with this little human being, and then you're married, and then you don't know how to interact. It's just different chemistries going on.
And some of us who are childless, we get the, well, you
Mhm.
can't tell us how to parent, because...
You don't know.
But I was an autistic girl,
Mhm.
so I know what their daughters feel like. And
It's bizarre.
I can speak to that,
Mhm.
even though I've never been a mom, so...
Well, I'm sure you've read more about parenting than a lot of parents have too. So there's,
Perhaps.
I mean, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I get that too. I mean, I am a parent,
Mhm.
and people say things to me like, "Oh, I'm sure you don't want to hear from me because I'm not one," and I'm like, "Well, I take your opinion as much as I take anyone's." Just because someone's had a child is another topic. We didn't get to, but it was a big talk about aging as a woman. We're the first generation of known or really out there.
Menopausal women.
Menopausal women on the
Oh,
spectrum.
joy, oh, bliss.
And when we talked about it in the pre-interview, I heard you guys say, "Oh, there's a whole other ball of wax," or even harder. What's unique about?
Well, there's
about-
this brain fog, there's all sorts of hormonal changes. We don't know if they're due to our autism or neurology.
So there's things that
and
are-
we don't know if it's
Well,
due
sensory.
to sensory
Sensory
overload.
stuff.
So you're seeing things that are different so you say
Just
that,
anecdotally, we're just comparing online.
Right.
We have a special group
but you're seeing
called
things different than neurotypical women going through
Autism
it.
Menopause is our Facebook
Okay.
group.
If I take a look at the demographics of the teenagers I work with on the spectrum who have their periods, let's just put
Yeah.
that on the table, we're talking about menopause. They experience
Yes.
a lot of pain and they experience more sensory
Yeah.
difficulties, lights and sounds. And so as you move up in age and you're approaching menopause, I'm approaching and she's right in there, it's like, it's a huge explosion. And our emotions to begin with are always
Pretty wild, yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
Take menopause, add that in typical
Into the mix.
Into the mix. So it's a whole
And nobody's studying it,
nobody's
Right.
studying it.
you know?
It's not to scare anyone.
Researchers
it's
out there,
pretty-
It's very scary.
I want to be a co-researcher. I really feel that women have a lot to say on this.
Well, no, it's a conversation I'm having regularly with girls now, is talking about
Manage.
menstruation and hormones, and there's some research to support it, that you know, girls on the spectrum tend to have a more difficult time with pain and with emotional regulation,
believe it.
and so I'm glad that hopefully
Well,
later
and
on it will be more research.
If you're hyposensory, I
Yeah.
had endometriosis for
Yeah.
over 30 years and I didn't know
Didn't
it.
know it, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't know what normal pain was. You know, they say you're going to suffer every month. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
suffer. So finally in 2005 it was addressed, but I had no clue. You know, I didn't know it was that severe.
Yeah.
And what a relief, you know, again, it was,
So once in a while, Christine will send me a message. You're gonna go through this, and I'm like, yeah.
But that thing is important. You have
It is.
you have that ability to sort of
we older women need to mentor our younger,
sisters.
spectrum sisters.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, I think back to you on this desk, all the talk about the transition planning and getting ready for the things that are going to happen.
There's two transitions though.
Yeah.
There's from high school into college.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's three.
There's-
then there's
There's
leaving
many,
university
there's
and
many.
going
I
out
feel
into
like there's a bunch. of them.
independent
Yeah.
life,
Life
and then
is a
there's
transition.
menopause.
Yeah.
You know, and
But if
it's-
you wait until it happens to deal with it,
then you're not going to
You're
be
not
ready.
gonna make it.
yeah,
Nope.
you got to plan and plan ahead. So,
So come find us on Facebook,
It-
Autism Menopause.
yeah, well, it does sound like right now, you know, the negative being there's not a lot of studying going on. That this is all we are in uncharted territory as it relates to a lot of these things. But we do have social media, we do have these online forums, and the more you all share
Interact.
and interact, it may be anecdotal, but it will be helpful for sure,
But I
right?
think it's important also to mention that although we're raising awareness on the trouble spots,
Yeah.
it's not always,
It's not bleak.
it's not
There is
bleak.
hope.
There's hope, and we're doing well, and I'm very happy. I'm a very happy lady. I love my life. I don't want anybody to say, oh my goodness, poor her.
No
No,
pity.
no.
Well, I think it was
You know?
very clear on the webinar and in this video that both of you are quite happy with where you're
We
at
want
in
to
life.
thrive, not just survive.
Exactly,
with
and
our
that you
autism.
have, and that's why I think you're here, right? Is
Yeah.
to share the stories of how you got here, and and we all want more supports and better and greater awareness and all of that. But you're a model for the women out there who maybe are just
Beginning to come
beginning
to
this
grips with this. Yeah.
beginning this journey in their 40s.
It's never too late. I don't think it's ever too late
No.
to find out.
No. All right, so that's an extra almost half an hour that we spent here. So I want to appreciate you. I know everyone's got places to go, so thanks for sticking around for the after show and for this dialogue. Hopefully we'll be doing it again soon. And if you didn't check out the event, go to learning.autismontario.com. That is the archived webinars on the Autism Ontario website, and you will see this discussion, which was great and as good as the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes that you just watched.